Hi. We'll be talking about Search API in Drupal 8 and the Search API ecosystem. My name is Joris. I'm Boris on Drupal.org, and I work for Dazzle. Dazzle is a small company in Stenokkerzel, and that's where I work. So, if you want to see the slides, this is the URL on the DrupalCamp website where the slides are. I've uploaded them like 15 minutes ago, so they should be visible if you want to follow along on your own machine. So, I will be talking about... Okay. Is this better? Okay. So we'll be talking about Search API, Facet API, and related other modules. So I'm going to start with Search API, then I'll do something about Search API Solr, Facets, a couple of other modules, and I'll quickly show an example of custom code. So what actually is Search API? Search API is a solution in Drupal to build searches that are better than the Drupal core search, or hopefully better than the Drupal core search. So you can see that there are entities. These are the things that are your nodes, your users, your taxonomy, whatever that is being indexed into a server. And these are the entities that we will be searching on. This is a view, just a Drupal view. And then we have a couple of other things. There's sorts, keywords, which is basically searching. There's facets and filters. And I won't be talking about filters because that's pretty much the same thing as facets. So, Search API. Let's start with an introduction. Back in 2010, Search API started as a suggestion for Drupal core search. We wanted to have a way to provide suggestions for Drupal core to do a better kind of searching. And we also wanted it to be generic and flexible because Drupal core at that time only supported indexing or searching for nodes and users and nothing else. And we also want to be able to search for related content and search for taxonomies and custom entities and what have you. So we wanted to do that. We wanted to be able to support not just searching in MySQL, because MySQL is very good for data storage, not as good for free text search. And we wanted to be able to provide a way to have different types of user interfaces that people can edit themselves. And we have a very good system to do that in Drupal. It's called views. Drupal core search does not use that, not in Drupal 7, not in Drupal 8. So we figured we have a very good list builder solution. Let's use that to create different user interfaces for search. We also wanted to have different advanced features like searching on keywords or free text search, having facets and filters and sorts on search, which was also not possible at the time. So in Drupal 7, there are two solutions to do searching. There's Search API and the related modules, and there's Apache Solr. For Drupal 8, we wanted to have one solution. So it says 3 years here, it's about 3.5, maybe 4 years ago now, Nick and Thomas decided that one module was a better thing than having two fragmented modules. So they started making a plan to convert it all into one module, Search API. So there was a crowdfunding campaign. There were sprints at events like Dev Days and DrupalCon. There was a dedicated sprint in Switzerland and one in Belgium. And we had 2 or 3 Google Summer of Code students who helped out. One of them helped out on trying to port the Elasticsearch backend, which is not complete yet. But you can't expect to have a Google Summer of Code student finish a complete backend for Search API. So there were sprints. This was at the Intracto headquarters here in Belgium, DrupalCon Amsterdam, DrupalCon Barcelona, people sprinting everywhere. So Apache Solr, as I mentioned, for Drupal 7, is still alive. It's still being maintained. For Drupal 8, it will be no longer maintained. For Drupal 6, because Drupal 6 is also no longer maintained, Apache Solr is also dead. So I'm quickly going to touch on a couple of things that helped us create Search API. One being Drupal.org. As you may know, Drupal 7, the Drupal.org website is a Drupal 7 website, and the issue queues on Drupal.org are built on Search API, and they use a MySQL backend. So that means if you are building a website and you need to provide search and you have less nodes than Drupal.org, you can do it in MySQL. And I'm assuming most of us here don't have the amount of nodes that Drupal.org has. If you want to have Solr, it's also possible, but Solr is, you don't have to switch to Solr just because of the size of your data set. If you want to use Solr or Lucene or whatever kind of search backend, you use that because it provides you with better free text search, or it provides you with more like this or advanced features like that that are not available on MySQL. But pure data size, MySQL is good enough. I also want to highlight a couple of people. Two of them are here. Nick and Matthias are here. They are people, a lot of people have provided 1 patch, 2 patches, 3 patches. Those are, I just went to the Search API contributors and I picked the top 12 people, and 2 of them happen to be here. And 1 of them should be here but isn't. Okay, so over this chart starts in July 2013, which is quite a while ago. And you can see that the Drupal Dev Days in Szeged, that was insane. A lot of commits, a lot of code being added. DrupalCon Amsterdam, also a very big amount of code being added. Not as many commits as in Szeged, but more code being added. And there's also these 2 things, and we really have to thank Acquia for that, because both me and Thomas Seidel were sponsored by Acquia's module acceleration program to work on Search API and related modules to get it into a more stable version for Drupal 8. So thanks, Acquia. Architecture. So there's 3 things you need to know about, 3 concepts you need to know about if you want to understand how Search API is architected. We have an index. An index is what is being searched on. It's nodes or users or whatever, and what kind of bundles you want to have included in the index. There's a server, which is where the data is being stored. This is MySQL or Solr, as I have already touched on a little bit. And there's views or Search API pages, which doesn't really have a name, but let's call it a display. That is the way that it's actually being outputted onto your website. So, a small demo. This is a Drupal 8.2. I'm just going to use Drush to do a new site install. I also generated some nodes, but so I'm just going to enable the Search API module and the database search module, which provides the MySQL backend. And I'm also going to enable database search defaults, because that provides a view already without having to configure it. It also provides an index and a server already configured. This does, however, depend on node and article being in your installation, because it already indexes fields from that. So as soon as you've installed those modules, you have to make sure that you also index the content, because otherwise nothing will be shown. As you saw, it was just an empty page. So index all the content into the data storage, which takes a little bit. Go back to the search results page, and this is, so this was a 40-second video. This is real time. This is how long it takes for you to set up a Search API from scratch on MySQL backend. So I'm going to quickly say some things that we have to figure out before we can reach a new. So we went into beta 1 on Tuesday, and we will have a release candidate when we resolve those issues that I'm going to talk about. So we have to, or we should, write better documentation and additional tests, because who doesn't like good documentation and good tests? There's also a hierarchical, which I misspelled on this slide, entities. The links, or the numbers are Drupal.org links. You can have a look if you want to help out. But hierarchies are to index the taxonomy and all the children and all the parents in one go. There's also 2 issues about the administration UI, because while a lot of people working on it are pretty good coders, none of us is really good at writing good UIs. And there's also one thing about config overrides, which allows you to have a different configuration for a server on your local machine compared to what it is on in the config. So you can override it from settings.php, and this is currently not possible, and we're trying to figure out a way how to do it. And there's also a really weird issue if any of you is using PHP 5.5 or 5.6 and has time to help us figure out why the tests are failing on that and are not failing on PHP 7. Please help us out, because I don't know, and I've spent way too much time on it already. Solr. So Solarium is a library that's being written. It's a PHP library. It's being written by someone, I have no idea who, but they've provided a lot of tests, and they've provided code to work with Solr and to have exception handling. Everything that you want from a Solr handling kind of code is already being written by them. So we just use their code because it's GPL and we don't have to write it ourselves. That's great. So this means that the Search API Solr backend is basically just a plugin, a composer file that links to Solarium, and some code to wire a Drupal query into something that works for Solarium, and that's it. And it also has tests, a lot of tests, but it's quite small in size and small in lines of code, because we get to outsource a ton of logic and things into them, which is awesome. So I'm going to set up a Solr right now. So first of all, we have to configure Drupal or Composer to get to use the Drupal Composer packages to get Drupal modules through Composer. We have to require Search API Solr. I'm using the dev version here, and that will install Solarium. It will also install Search API and Search API Solr. Enable the module. I'm pretty sure most of you have already done this. Start Solr. I've installed Solr through Brew, so it's just Solr start in my case. And that's it. That's all that it takes to set it up. So on the left side of the screen, you can see the terminal window. This is a tail-f of my Solr log, so you will see stuff appearing as the video goes on. So I'm going to start by adding a new server through the Search API interface. I select Solr, and I have to enter the correct path, which is /d8 in my case. Save the Search API Solr, and there's already output coming in because it's already creating like things. Then we have to, the index that was previously on MySQL, we switch it to Solr backend, to the Solr server, index all the data again, and you will see new lines appearing because data is being indexed. And then when you refresh your search page, there was another one line that appeared in the log, because that line was the Search API, the query hitting Solr. This was another 40 seconds setting up Solr on Drupal 8. So in 160 seconds, you have Search API and Search API Solr, pretty much. I might be exaggerating a little bit, but we've tried to make it as easy as possible for you to create a good search solution. Facets. So this is the module that I know the most about because I'm the maintainer for Facets for Drupal 8. I know nothing about Facets for Drupal 7, so I can't answer any questions about that if you have them. For Drupal 8, I might be able to. So, architecture. There's one class in Facets, the Facet Manager, which is basically the one thing that wires everything together. It has an init facets method, which is basically sets up a lot of things and loads facets from the storage to make sure that everything, and it sees what facet is enabled on this page and which one can we react to. In alter query, we'll actually alter the Search API query with an enabled facet if there's a facet enabled. And build is a method that will return a build widget. And a widget being links or checkboxes or a drop down. And those are the three most important methods in Facets. There's three places you can hook into Facets to change the behavior or the look. There's processors. Those processors, there are 4 different options. There's one before the query is being run, one after the query has run, during the build process, and one for sorting the results. There's a widget. We ship 3 default widgets, the links one, the checkbox one, which is basically links and some JavaScript to turn them into checkboxes. And we have a drop down, which is links and some JavaScript to turn them into a drop down. But you can create your own widget by adding a widget plugin. And we have a URL processor. Most of you have already heard about Pretty Bots. If you have worked with Facets before, Facets Pretty Bots is a URL processor. We don't ship with that one, and we probably won't. But we ship with one that uses the query string arguments. A short demo. So enable facets. And then this is the facets page. So we add a facet, we select the view, and then I think I chose content type. Yes, exactly. So I choose a facet on the content type. I save this page. Then the next page will be a long list of different kind of options. I suggest you take the time to look at those if you want to work with it, but I'm not going to explain all of it. Creating a facet also creates a block automatically, so you can just add a block, and I'm going to search for content type because that was the name of the facet. Place the block in the sidebar, and hopefully it will show up, and it does. So this was 50 seconds. Also quite easy to add a facet to just show links already, and it works. Well, disclaimer, it worked then. It doesn't work right now with current head. We've been working very hard yesterday and a lot of time today as well on trying to make that work. But if you use Alpha 4 of Facets and Alpha 16 of Search API, I'm 100% sure that those work together, and hopefully this week or next week we will also release a beta to make sure that we are compatible with Search API Beta 1. So to do, bring Facets up to date with Search API Beta 1. That's one thing we have to do, and we've been trying to do it yesterday. As I said, we have to try to implement Pretty Bots, or at least make sure that Pretty Bots works with our current architecture. Hierarchy, which is spelled correctly on this slide and not on the other one. But this is dependent on the Search API patch. And there's one hidden dependency that we've been trying to figure out. This one is ready for review. So if you have a couple of minutes and you want to help us out, reviewing that patch would be awesome. And also documentation and tests, because just like with Search API, additional documentation is good, additional tests are also good. So Search API went into beta this week. Search API pages, or well, basically all the other modules are in alpha versions or development versions. Search API page is on alpha 11, Solr is on alpha 6. Not all of the alpha versions work together currently, but each Search API release has a list of modules that it works with that are verified to be compatible. But all of those modules I have tested out, and on Elasticsearch, that one I'm not really sure if that works as it's supposed to work, but the other ones do produce some results already. So there's some work to be done, but there's also good news because most things seem to work pretty much the way they should work. There are bugs, no doubt, but it's going in a good direction. For facets, we're on alpha 4, and there's a sandbox module for pretty parts. But we're going to try to push to beta as soon as possible, and we will probably release a beta for facets at DrupalCon Dublin in 2 weeks. And some people are a little bit more optimistic than others, because this tweet by Swentel was sent in October last year. And he figured that Drupal 8 was ready because Search API and Solr were ready and facets. That might be a little bit optimistic in my point of view, but you can try. So I'm going to show some custom code, or how to create custom code in Search API. So I created a small module, and I'm going to create a Search API processor. The use case for this is non-existent. No one of you will ever have to just copy this one and have your client's needs figured out, because this is a really small and an easy example of just ignoring every single node or entity that's being processed that has pipe ignore in the title. Just don't index that. None of you will ever have that use case, but it's very, very easy to explain how this works. So this is it. Can I go to the next slide, or has anyone seen that? No, I'm sure no one can read it. This might be better. So you start with, this is a plugin. So there's a plugin annotation at Search API processor. It has an ID, has a label, a description to make sure that you can recognize this in the admin UI. And there's a stage, pre-process index. I mentioned with facets that we have 4 different kind of processors. Search API also has different kinds of processors, and they are, so the stages is how we say what kind of processor it is. This one runs before indexing. So when you index content into a Search API index, before it actually goes into the index, this is when this processor will run. So first of all, we have to make sure that we don't execute this code on a data source that doesn't support this. So we loop over the index's data sources, and we make sure that it actually has nodes, because further down in the plugin we will have node-specific code, and if there's no nodes available, then this doesn't make any sense. In your specific use case, you might know that this is not possible, and you might just leave this behind and always return true, but I like to make sure that I don't shoot myself in the foot in the future. So then we have pre-processed index items. Each different kind of stage of processor has a different method to execute it. We loop over all the items, we check if it's a node, and then very naively just do a string pause check. If there's pipe ignore in the title of the node, unset the item out of the array, and that makes sure that it does not get indexed. This is how you create custom code for Facet, for Search API. But Facets is pretty much the same thing. If you want to create a display suite plugin, that also works this way. It's also just a plugin. It's pretty easy code, or well, I think it's quite readable. It's not very, methods are quite short, which is easy to read and easy to work with. And that's all I have to say about it. Does anyone have any questions about any of those modules? Sure.
I want to give a remark on the case that you are explaining, that you wouldn't use this case, but I can tell you that we have used the case where we needed to ignore the content to get it indexed. So
yeah, you can do it, but I'm pretty sure that it was not just pipe ignore in the title of the node. So that's what I was commenting on. But if it's, you can use this and just load the, well, the node is already loaded, so you can do check on a field and check if the value of a field is something specific and do it like that. So that part works and will probably, I've done that as well, but I haven't done just string pause checking on a node title. Okay, any other questions? Sure.
Would you recommend using it in a production environment already, or?
So I would, since we are in beta right now with Search API, that means that we will provide an upgrade pod. So we won't break any of your data. We won't break any of your configuration, if we can help it. So 99.9% sure, I will say right now, we won't break your configuration. If there's some kind of thing that we missed and we can't help it, then I'm very sorry, we might, but it's a very little chance that we will do that. That's for Search API. For Facets, don't use it together with that beta, because you won't see any facets, because it's horribly broken right now, today. As soon as that goes into beta, sure, but Search API is stable, and I know of some people.
I could comment on that. We're using it for 3 months now, and it's like you always says, you can use it if you know what you're doing. You need to be capable of keeping up to date with the latest updates.
Okay, which is a brave decision. Okay, anyone else who has any? Yeah.
Are there any future plans to combine facet blocks into, let's say, a specific facet block for a search and transform it into a form?
To transform facets into a form? Do I understand that correctly?
It's always linked, but I imagine that it could be more easy to use when it becomes a form.
We have toyed with that idea. We have had some code that actually did that we used the form instead of just a bunch of links, and we couldn't get it to work reliably. So if someone smarter than me can figure it out, then yeah, we would love to. But right now, I can't figure it out. I can't get it stable. So I can't say that we're going to do that very soon. I would love to, but we can always do that in the future, because it would just mean adding a new widget with a form. So it's the problem that we faced with it, if I remember correctly, is that it was quite hard to figure out how to have a form dynamic while still posting on 7 different forms on the same page, that are all rendered in blocks, and it was just too many moving parts, and that's why we couldn't figure it out. But I have to say I only spent like maybe 5 days on it, so maybe with some more time we can figure that out. But I agree that it would be better. There's also another reason, because a form is quite easy to make into a post, which means that that part of your page will never be cacheable, because post requests never are. While for a GET request, it's a lot easier to make everything cacheable and cache the way that you want it to be cached. And there's also, if you post a form, you just post to the same URL, or you do something weird with it, and so we had to figure out how to either make posts redirect to a new URL, so we could have pretty pods and you could share links and stuff like that, and also the cacheability aspect of it. Does that make sense? Yes. I'm trying to remember. It was like November or something like that, so I hope I have everything still right. Can I answer any other questions? No? Okay. Then I'd like to thank the sponsors. And I think I went a little bit too fast, but sorry.
Thank you.
Ik ben een lot op zijn verkeerd ingesteld. Ik had niet met een presenter die speelt. Ik was al binnen geraken.
Ja, het is snel. Ja, het is